changing face of America's corporation. And as I mentioned this morning, I rely on data for my day-to-day job on a regular basis. And one of the trends that we've seen at IBM is that when we talk about global markets, as a company, our workforce has changed immensely. So let me give you an example as a benchmark. When I joined IBM back in 1997, we had approximately 3,000 employees in India. Today we have over 70,000. So this goes to show you that corporations on a global scale are changing. So this is also going to have an impact on companies that are US-based as well. So I am privileged this morning to be joined by a fantastic group of panelists here that have tremendous insights on this subject. So let me just go down the line here. And I'm going to ask for each panelist to take a few minutes to give you a background on their experience, who they work for, and then we'll get started. So the first person I'm going to introduce is Andrea White from Toyota.
Hello, Andrea White. I'm from Toyota. Did I add value?
So far, so good. Validated.
I started in the legal department at Toyota over 20 years ago. I have a law degree. I was in the legal department for about 12 years until I actually exited the legal department to work in the business group, to head the strategy team in the e-business group. And then I was asked by the CIO to create a new organization based on information security, information management. And so I did that for a few years, and then I was asked to take a position as Chief Privacy Officer, which I've been doing for about the last 4 years.
Thank you. Isaiah.
Hi, Isaiah Zamoripa. I'm a Mexican, so my dad's Mexican, my mom's Puerto Rican. I was born in Kansas City, Missouri, so I've got all the everything covered here. But I grew up in Puerto Rico, so I mean I'm a Boricua, and I'm a Salcero, so you understand that. I think my career is really about extremes. I go from one extreme to another. So I went to high school in Puerto Rico. Where do I go to go get my bachelor's? Marquette University, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Pretty big change. From Milwaukee, I go to New York City to get my MBA at Columbia Business School. Then I go Mount Bellevue, Texas to work with a little company called Exxon Corporation. So I go to Mount Bellevue, Texas, and go to Detroit. Then I say, you know what, I want to try this on my own. I start my own search firm, go back to Houston, 6 years. After 6 years, something happened during that time, actually. The National Society of Hispanic MBA was born. I helped start the local chapter in Houston 21 years ago. And that really started to get the excitement about what I do, which is really trying to change the color of corporate America, specifically around Latinos. I then came back into corporate America with Amoco because I said, well, by myself I can make a lot of placements, but if I go to a corporation, I can make an even a bigger impact. So I went to Amoco in Chicago, was there for 4 years, then a little company called BP came and purchased us. And it was not the right company for me, so I left another little company over in Minneapolis called General Mills. So I was at General Mills for 10.5 years as a director of talent acquisition and diversity. Really enjoyed it, and today I said the same thing. I said, you know what, I can now go back and be by myself and help other companies reach these goals. So I started my own company, 3 Degrees from Isaiah's. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tisa Jackson, and I'm originally here from the LA area, but growing up, I went to 11 different schools growing up. And so I emphasize that because when you talk about change and diversity, that was my regular life. And I was very fortunate to actually find my calling in diversity and inclusion about 15 years ago. I'm a bit of an oddity. Typically people in diversity are doing something else and then fall into it. I actually found my calling when I was in college and haven't looked back since then. I have managed basically every area of human resources and have started 2 diversity and inclusion departments from scratch. I'm now at Union Bank. We are a part of the global financial services family, and I head up the diversity and inclusion efforts for the bank. Again, I feel very fortunate because it is my passion, and we are able to be in a unique position for diversity and inclusion. Our parent company is a Japanese company, but they look to the U.S. as the leaders when it comes to diversity. So we actually have a bit of an influence on a global scale when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And we might be able to talk about that a little bit in terms of the future. some of the things that we're looking at doing together within Union. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I need this. Can you hear me? Well, I feel like I've led a dull life. My name is Daryl Sawyer, and I manage diversity and EEO programs for Pratt & Whitney Rocketdyne, which is a business unit of United Technologies Corporation. We are a rocket engine company, and our chief product is represented by those three things you see at the business end of the space shuttle and launch. We provide the engine for the space shuttle. We also provide power and propulsion systems for double core and atmospheric rocket propulsion systems. I've been with Rocketdyne for about 5 years now. Previous to that, I managed the government compliance program for the Western Division for the Home Depot Company. Spent a couple of years previous to that managing the affirmative action for Lockheed Martin Aeronautics Company in suburban Atlanta. And previous to that, recognition from my colleague Luis, I spent 32 years at IBM, where I served in a number of capacities in operations, marketing, sales, administration, training and development, and ultimately human resources. So that's the way I am.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay. All right, I feel even more boring. I think I've had probably a lot less to do. So let me just start out by first introducing just a little bit about myself. I think it's sometimes I forget to share this part about myself, but my name is Linda Kutagawa. I am the Senior Vice President for Leadership Education for Asia Pacifics, also known as LEAD. I am sometimes, I guess I'll sometimes jokingly say I'm a rarity here in California because I'm actually native-born Californian, a real Californian. I actually am first-generation American. My parents came from Japan after the war, so they did not experience the internment camps that other Japanese Americans experienced, but my mother was, actually both my parents were in Hiroshima when the wall was dropped. So I'm a different kind of person in the sense that I'm a child of an atomic bomb survivor. I never really realized what that meant until a few years ago. But I share this because I grew up in an area of California, which is east of Los Angeles, not in East LA itself, but east of Los Angeles, in a neighborhood where we were the only Asian family. So growing up, because there were no other Asians around, it was a predominantly white, and I say deliberately Mexican neighborhood because at the time there were no other Latinos at the time. Everybody there was Mexican American or Mexican heritage, and it was kind of interesting because not too long ago I was talking to somebody who talked about teaching at the school that I went to, and she talked about it being a working class neighborhood, and I was thinking, oh my God, I went to that school, and I always thought it was just a very middle class neighborhood. It's really interesting what you think about, what your kind of environment is like when you're growing up. I always thought it was a very middle class kind of place, and she kind of called it a working class neighborhood, and I thought it hasn't changed that much, so I guess it was working class when I went to school, so it was kind of a different kind of perspective for me to hear that. I am the first in my family to receive a bachelor's degree, so I went to school at Cal State University, Los Angeles. My degree is in international business and a minor in economics, and I share this because I think part of it is I think there's a perception of Asian Americans went to Cal, went to SC, went to UCLA, has parents that have, college degrees to the nth degree. My mother never went to college. My father has an associate degree, and on that he raised 2 children. I guess we were kind of like, at that point, they just decided they didn't want to have the big families that they came from. So I'm currently working for LEAP. In a sense, I fell into it. I've been working at LEAP for the last 18 years. Prior to that, I was doing marketing.